You want me to do the intro?
Yeah, go for it. It's recording, whatever you want to say.
Welcome to the American Grown Podcast, hosted by Austin Sullivan. The American Grown Podcast will focus on people from different walks of life and their journey to where they are now. Settle in, turn up the volume, and get ready for another great episode.
Yeah, let's rock and roll. You got it.
I got it.
All right, cheers, brother. Let's kick this off officially.
So you're the American Grown Podcast.
1 year in. Here we go. Oh, this is going to be a special one. I just got a feeling.
Welcome to the American Grown Podcast, hosted by Austin Sullivan. The American Grown Podcast will focus on people from different walks of life and their journey to where they are now. Now, turn up your volume and settle in for a great episode.
Hi, I'm Austin Sullivan. This is the American Grown Podcast, recorded inside the Colortech Creative Solutions studios. Today we have Taylor Shepley, Survey Manager and Drone Operator at Keystone Custom Homes. Shep, welcome to episode 28 of the American Grown Podcast.
Appreciate it, Sully. It's truly an honor to be here.
Appreciate it.
I'll be honest, I filled out the form kind of expecting to be a filler if needed, but it's
You got your own episode.
Yeah.
1 year in.
Something special.
This is
being here for
1 year episode.
the 1 year anniversary. So I got to say congrats to you.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. And you brought me a bottle of Old Forester bourbon for those of you listening. You were probably like my number one supporter. I'm pretty sure you listen to every episode. You probably know them better than I do.
I try to, yeah. I mean, since we're a year in, they're starting to kind of blend together a little bit here and there, but you definitely have your standouts.
You're a good friend, a godfather to my daughter, Parker. And yeah, like I said, we're here to celebrate the 1 year anniversary of the American Grown Podcast.
Insert Godfather movie quote here.
There you go. Perfect. Hey, let's cheers to that. 1 year. Cheers to Parker.
Cheers.
Cheers. All right. Some of the topics we want to hit on include surveying. You know, that's your full-time job. You're killing it, doing a fantastic job. Drones and drone operations. And then also, you know, the great outdoors and just life in general. So to start off, I got to ask you, how was driving in here to Lebanon? You're a surveyor, right? So you know the roads in Lebanon. What do you think of them?
I mean, they're interesting for sure. The way I came was I came down the turnpike, hopped on 72, and then it's just those weird interchanges, man.
Yeah, it's brutal.
It's like go straight, but it's actually right. Go right, but it's actually kind of straight, and then it's like sharp right, veer right, straight left, and you get your 5- and 6-way interchanges. It gets pretty hairy.
Yeah, my take on it, being local, living here in Lebanon, the roads are shit. I don't know. I'm not a surveyor, an expert in any of this. Just driving around town, teeth are chattering. It's so bad out there. Seriously, I don't know if you've seen how dug up our roads are. It's brutal. So what was life like being raised in rural Pennsylvania?
Yeah, so I mean, where I grew up, lower Northumberland County, not a whole lot of like major cities or anything like that. You have your towns with pretty big populations. For reference, Sully, how many kids were in your graduating class?
Oh man, I think we had 400 to 500.
Okay, so when I graduated, Line Mountain High School, we had what was considered a big class at the time, and we graduated 100.
Wow.
Yeah. I think the class before us had around 65.
Really?
Yeah. And I mean, it fluctuates depending on, the years and stuff like that. But it's definitely a rural area. From what I understand, it's actually one of the larger school districts by area.
Okay.
But it's not densely populated at all. So, you're covering that big area, but you're only getting 50 to 100 kids a class. So.
Wow. In high school, what sports, what'd you do for fun? A musician? What did you do for fun, really?
Yeah, growing up, I did baseball and football up until about middle school. I did JV baseball my freshman year, but middle school is really the point when I transitioned from sports to music. So baseball, Little League, loved it. Mm-hmm. I kind of sprouted up early, so I was one of the bigger kids on the team. First base, because
Okay.
I had the height, I had the reach,
Yeah.
and I was a lefty.
That makes sense. Oh,
So
perfect.
Yeah, so being a lefty, you pretty much have the option of first base, pitcher, or the outfield.
Okay.
Because anywhere else I mean, you can do it by all means, but it's certainly inconvenient.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did do catching for a little bit, but that was tough.
Yeah. It takes your knees. Brutal.
Well, not only that, but as a lefty, like a majority of the batters are right-handed batters.
Okay.
So when you're facing a right-handed batter catching, the glove's on your right hand and you're trying to throw with your left, and the batter's right
It's
there.
right there in your way.
Yeah. And I didn't have the strength for the pitcher, but I did have the reach for first base.
Okay.
So, yeah, that was fun. Football, right tackle, defensive end.
Were you right tackle?
Yeah, I was a right tackle. I did defensive end a little bit, but again, it was little league, so it's like nothing too crazy. You know the paybooks by the numbers if you're going right or left, and when you're playing defense, all you're doing is going after the guy with the ball.
Right. Pancake him.
Yeah, not a whole lot of strategy to it, at least not for me. But then, so my career with music, I mean, it started off early. I took piano lessons from when I was in, first grade, I think it was, up until I was a junior in high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so music's always been a part of my life.
And where do you think that came from? Grandmother, mother?
So I don't, my mother's mother was in band, and both my mom and my aunt, they were in band. My mom played the flute. My aunt played the clarinet. But I think what really sunk it in was my mom started taking piano lessons when she was pregnant with me. And she stopped when she got too big that she couldn't actually reach the keys anymore.
Yeah.
So I think that definitely has a play into what got me into music and the piano.
Yeah.
But I started doing band in 5th grade. Went and did the trumpet. My dad also played the trumpet too.
Okay.
But yeah, I did the trumpet 5th, 6th grade. And then from how our school was built up, it was considered like elementary from kindergarten through 6th grade. And then 7th grade, you go to junior high. And it was 7th and 8th junior high, and then 9th through 12th high school. So I made that transition up to junior high. I just did concert band, musical, my 7th grade year, but then 8th grade is when I started doing the marching band, jazz band, pit orchestra, pretty much anything they had that I could play something in. I did kind of bounce back and forth between the trumpet and the piano when it came to like jazz band and orchestra. Outside of school, I became the local substitute organist for all of the Lutheran churches in the valley.
Really?
Yeah. So I started off playing at one, and then word got around, and sure enough, I'm getting the phone calls. Hey, can you cover for me this week? This Sunday.
So you're playing it all too, probably in your little community. I'm just messing. How many did you play at? Do you think?
Over the years, I think I played at max 10 churches.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I
cool.
had my regulars. I had, I think, 4 or 5 churches that I kind of built a rapport with, and then there was other like sister churches in the area that they would sometimes share organists. So it's like, oh, hey, the normal substitute that I fill in for at a different church is their substitute at that church. So, and then the holidays, Easter, Lenten services, that whole thing. So I started doing that, and then that led me to a brief stint as a music director in one of the churches.
No way.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So I did the organist on Sundays, and then I directed the choir and the bell choir. We had a handbell choir too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and you still to this day do the handbell.
Yeah. So since we moved down to Mechanicsburg here, we
fast forward a little bit. But
fast forward. We're going to jump around. I'm sure.
Well, we got bourbon going, so we got it.
So fast forward, I moved to Mechanicsburg, found a church down here that also has actually a bigger handbell choir than what I had. So that was the only church in the area that had a handbell choir. So I didn't really know much about it. And then I came down here and they're like, oh yeah, we go to these festivals, and you had 4 octaves, but there's actually like 8 octaves, and
really?
they have huge bells, man. It's crazy.
Does it take 2 hands to ring, or?
So once they actually get a certain size, they go from bronze or brass to aluminum because they just get too heavy.
So it's a lighter material.
Yeah, so it's a lighter material, but still, I mean, the biggest bell they have is probably almost 3 feet in circumference or in diameter. Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy.
That is crazy. You know, music has always been in your life and still is. After high school, was it always to go to, you know, Penn State? I mean, that's huge in PA. You know, everybody wants to go Penn State, you know, unless you're way west, then it's Pitt. And if you're in Philly,
we don't say Pitt here.
Shit on Pitt, right? Right. Or if you're in Philly, then you go to Temple, you know, or something like that, or Villanova or whatever. So was that always the plan?
To kind of give some background on my career choices growing up. For the longest time, as far back as I can remember, I loved seeing the PennDOT crews out on the road. Okay. I thought what they were doing was the coolest thing ever. You know, I would kind of like, I don't want to say learn how to read, but I practiced my reading by reading all the road signs.
Yeah.
And when you're in a construction zone, I mean, there's signs everywhere. So,
right.
You know, that's plenty of source material.
Yeah,
right?
exactly, right.
So I thought that was the coolest thing. Did that actually as a summer internship between I think I did it for 2 or 3 years, from like junior year up until after my freshman year in college, just as a flagger, and then I would, you know, man the shovel.
Okay.
But still, I got to experience all that, and I thought it was cool. So when it came to figuring out what kind of career I wanted to try and do something similar to that, and it kind of led me to bridges.
Yeah.
I did a few summer camps in elementary school where you do like the build a bridge out of balsa wood or toothpicks and then put a bunch of weight on it and figure it out. Yeah.
That's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. So
they
taught you about the different types of bridges and what kind of weight they support and everything else. You know, I had a interest in bridges, which, you know, was like, okay, well, who designs bridges? And it was civil engineers. Up until probably my senior year in high school, I was like, I'm going to be a civil engineer. I'm going to be a civil engineer. This is what I'm going to do.
Okay. Mindset. You're focused.
Yeah, mindset. You know, I'm starting to look at this and I'm like, okay, you know, what are some schools in the area? You know, Penn State was obviously one of them. Bucknell, that was another local one that had a good engineering department I was looking at. And then we got to, I think it was my junior year of high school, when we had to do our senior project. I might have actually been senior year. I guess senior project kind of gives it away.
Yeah, that would make sense. But I'm not going to argue with you.
Yeah, so our senior project was, you know, pick a career that you would consider. If you have one that you are thinking you want to go to, pick that. If you don't, find something you might be interested in.
Yeah.
So, of course, what did I do? Civil engineering.
Yeah, of course, right.
So I researched the crap out of civil engineering. You know, I figured out what the education requirements are, what the salary, you know, what the job entails. And I realized it's a desk job.
Oh, that's no fun.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm going to be riding a desk 9 to 5. I was like, man, I don't want to do that. And that's kind of when reality sank in. So I'm like, okay, maybe civil engineering isn't it, but I can find something else. I was big in yearbook at the time.
Okay.
I loved doing the yearbook in high school. So I looked at photography, and I realized, you know, I enjoy doing it, but I don't necessarily have that artistic
mindset kind of
side of my brain that is like, you know, National Geographic quality photos.
Right.
So I kind of looked around. I was like, okay, so what's similar to civil engineering that involves working outside? You know, I love being outdoors. And I found surveying as an option. Had no idea what surveying was at the time. I kind of talked to my school counselors. I'm like, hey, you know, I'm going to stick with civil engineering for my senior project, but I'm not sure, like, this is what I actually want to do. So, ironically, my mom had a friend whose son was a surveyor. So I was able to set up 2 job shadowing, one through the school and one through my mom's friend, which both actually ended up hiring me at some point.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that
so,
says a lot.
Know, it's networking from high school.
It's very important, networking.
Yep. Yeah. So I job shadowed both of those, and I got 2 totally different experiences from both. The one guy I shadowed, he kind of gave me like the office side of surveying and the map making, which I loved.
Yeah.
I loved the drafting of it. And the second one was more of the field experience. So I got to go out with a field crew. They were doing some work along the power line, showing me all the equipment, which I had never seen before.
Right.
And I'm like, you guys are carrying around a computer and a, super powered GPS. This is the coolest thing since sliced bread,
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So I think that was kind of the first point where I kind of fell in love with surveying. Again, looking back, I had no idea what all surveying entailed. I thought it was just, boundary surveys and making plans. And I'm like, I can do that day in and day out,
Right.
Especially the plan making, because I took drafting in high school. I loved it. I always, my dad, he's in construction. He would come home with a plan set from whatever job he was working on and kind of walk me through, like, okay, so this is what these line means. This is what they call a dimension, which is a measurement of that line scaled. Obviously it says 40 feet on paper.
Yeah.
It's not 40 feet of paper. So plans and maps always kind of had a special place in my heart. And I'm glad that I was able to find it with surveying.
Seriously.
So, yeah.
So you had that experience. Then you go to Penn State. What was that?
No, you asked about Penn State. Sorry, I went on a tangent.
No. What was that like? I know you're a big Penn State fan, as many are.
Ironically, when I found surveying, I started to do the research. It's like, okay, so what schools offer surveying programs? At the time, I was looking for a bachelor's degree, and the only one that was remotely close to being local was Penn State Wilkes-Barre. And I think they were one of around 11 in the entire country that I could find that offered a bachelor's degree in surveying. Yeah,
11 in the whole country. Wow.
Yeah, now it's been almost 10 years since I've been out of college now. So, some schools, the program's folded. Some of them, they are bringing in new programs. So it kind of varies. I don't know what the exact number is now, but I found Penn State Wilkes-Barre, and I'm like, okay, let's go up and take a look at it. So my junior year, spring of my junior year, I'm going up there looking, and I fell in love with it. So it's about 20 minutes outside of Wilkes-Barre in the back mountain area. It's, I don't want to say suburbs, it's still pretty rural, but it's more populated than what I'm growing up with. So, we walked through the campus and there were deer in the walking path.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty.
Yeah. So yeah. I felt like I was right at home. I'm like, this is perfect. Yeah. So I knew from the get-go, it's like, okay, I'm doing surveying. I'm applying to Penn State Wilkes-Barre. I'm going for my bachelor's degree. That's it.
Yeah.
So that was the only school I applied to. I had no plan B.
Really? That was the only school?
Yep.
All in.
I had no plan B. And thankfully, I got accepted. It worked out. Yeah. So I got up there and loved it. I mean, it was a smaller community campus.
Yeah.
It wasn't University Park. So like class sizes, as far as the surveying program goes, I think there were between 20 and 30 kids in the entire program. So my surveying classes were, 10 to 15 kids.
Really?
Yeah.
That's perfect. I mean, really.
And even the gen eds, like the bigger math courses, they were still only like maybe 25, 30 kids on some of the bigger ones. Yeah.
Wow.
So you definitely get the one-on-one experience.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Shout out to Penn State. Like, seriously, Wilkes. See, I say Wilkes-Barre. That's Wilkes-Barre.
It's a...
what is it?
Depends on who you ask.
How do you say it?
I say Wilkes-Barre.
Wilkes-Barre.
Sometimes I'll slip in the Wilkes-Barre.
Wilkes-Barre, yeah. Wilkes-Barre.
There's always Wilkes-Barre, but
whoa, no.
Yeah, it's an ongoing debate.
Don't throw that in there.
It depends on who you ask.
Okay.
But
I mean, that says a lot about them because the smaller class sizes, like you said, one-on-ones, you get better. I think you can learn better rather than having hundreds or even 50, 60 kids to a class.
And one thing that really helped me was it was called SSS, Student Support Services. So I was a first-generation college kid. Growing up in a rural area, there wasn't a whole lot of people at the time that, from my parents' generation, that would have gone to college. So I was a first-generation college kid, went up there, had no idea what to really expect. All the paperwork, the application process, didn't really know a whole lot going in, and the people at SSS. They hold a special place in my heart.
Yeah.
I still go up whenever I'm in the area. I'll stop by and see who's still there. Shout out to Gail, and they helped me a lot through not only just the tutoring, but I had switched majors. I went from the bachelor's degree to the associate's degree, and that was a heavy decision that really, like, it was a major life decision that I'm kind of making on a whim here. Yeah. And, they kind of sat me down. They talked me through everything. They said, okay, if you stick with the path you're at here, there's a lot of unknowns, but you're definitely going to be staying at least another year. And if you do switch to the associates, you already have a lot of your courses taken care of. The only thing you really need to do is stay an extra semester, get your surveying courses. As long as you pass all those, you should be good. So, they sat me down, they walked me through everything, and ultimately helped me make that decision. Obviously at the end of the day, it was my decision, but they gave me what I needed to understand fully what decision I was making.
For any colleges or anybody that might be listening, high school students going into college, get with your counselors, get with these people that, that's what they're paid to do, is to help you make these tough decisions when you're young, because you don't know. My time at Kutztown, I'm not trying to go off subject.
No, but, it's all good material here, bud.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So, I never really met or even talked to a counselor there, and I feel like had they maybe gotten involved at like early on, and had those conversations, and I know they have a lot of students, they can't sit with everybody, but maybe they could have, kept me then for all 3 years. I just did my freshman year at Kutztown. Mm-hmm. I went for, as graphic design and arts and things like that. But then I quickly learned that you can't just draw stick figures and get past. So you're at Penn State. I know you have a very tight-knit friend group, right? You're from a small rural high school. Very small. Like I said, I had 400 or 500 graduate kids with me. I don't even know half of them. My buddies I do have, we talk from time to time, but, it's not as close as I feel like your group was. So when you went to Penn State, and maybe I'm fast forwarding, you can fill it in, but when did you meet your wife, Hannah?
So, as you said, growing up in a rural area, you basically know everybody, the family they belong to, where they live, where the families live. It's a very tight-knit community. And I'm thankful to still have a pretty large group of friends from that home area that I grew up with that, we still keep in close contact with, even through all these years. And then going up to Penn State Wilkes-Barre, again, it wasn't like the huge major city. You had Wilkes-Barre there so that you could kind of get the city feel, if you will.
Yeah, there you go.
Again, I didn't travel too much in there because you think the roads are bad in Lebanon.
Really?
Yeah, I experienced my first 5-way intersection in Wilkes-Barre, and I had no idea what
Wait, what would you say? A 5-way intersection?
A 5-way intersection. So it was like your normal 4-way intersection, and they just kind of throw one in out of nowhere.
Oh, shit.
And it's like you got 1 or 2 traffic lights conducting traffic for all 5 intersections.
That sounds dangerous.
It's like this huge, intersection in the middle. I'm like, what do I do?
Right. You go. No, I go.
And it's like, I'm still a kid. I've only been driving for a few years.
Yeah.
Never really got any like crazy experience with like major city traffic.
Right.
So, you're driving through the middle of Wilkes-Barre at rush hour, and you're like white knuckling.
Yeah, I can picture it. Yeah.
Anyway, meeting my wife. My lovely wife, Hannah. Shout out to her.
Shout out to Hannah for real.
She's my rock, man.
Yeah.
She is
phenomenal woman.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Couldn't say it better myself. She keeps cheers to that.
Cheers to that. Take a drink.
She keeps me grounded, but she is the most loving, supportive woman I could ever ask for.
Yeah.
She keeps me saying I drive her nuts.
That's the best. Yeah. I'm sure Courtney would say the same about me.
Yeah. We met through the Lion Ambassador Club. So that's the club on campus that you see like the tour guides giving the tours to the potential students and stuff. They're called Lion Ambassadors.
Okay.
So I met her there.
And you mean lion like...
Yeah, like the Nittany lion.
Okay.
Yeah. Good impression.
Yeah, pretty close, right? Okay.
So I met her through that, and then through other friends that were in that club, we were able to kind of meet up at a birthday party. So it was a birthday party for a mutual friend. I went over, and we just ended up staying up all night just talking. We hit it off, kind of had a thing for each other, but we stayed up all night just talking about anything and everything.
Getting to know each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I didn't want to think it because I thought I was Russian, but I met her and I'm like pretty sure she's the one,
Yeah.
And
you get that feeling.
When you know.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm with you.
So we really hit it off at that birthday party, stayed up all night talking, had a Lion Ambassador function the next day. I was in the lion suit.
What?
Yeah.
Wait, what? You were in the lion suit?
Yeah. So
No way.
Yeah. I
didn't know
was in the lion suit that day, and I'll tell you, I was a pretty tired lion.
Yeah. I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're usually upbeat, but that one, his tail was dragging a little bit.
So, okay. So Hannah's giving tours. Were you also giving tours?
Yeah.
Or-
So
okay.
she was a class ahead of me, and I joined as a freshman, and she was a sophomore. So she had already kind of gone through the training process of it. So she was one of the members that were training the freshmen on how to give tours, what to say, walking backwards. That's always a big key point about the Lion
That's
Ambassadors.
important,
Yeah.
right? You got to watch that step.
Yeah. Make sure you don't drag your feet, because if you catch this uneven sidewalk, you're going
done.
down. Yeah.
You're done.
Almost got to high step it a little bit.
Right.
But so she was one of the Lion Ambassadors that was in charge of training the freshmen. So
Okay.
that's kind of how we started talking. I'd shoot her a message and be like, hey, can you help me with a tour? But, I just wanted to
Hang out with her.
hang out with her, try to get to know her a little bit better. And
Yeah.
it worked. I will say, up at Penn State Wilkes-Barre when I was there, the guy-to-girl ratio was like 5-1. And being in the survey program, it was even slimmer. It was like 15-1.
Even now, as you're going through life, it can be somebody from now or from back then. Who inspired you or has been a mentor in your life so far?
I've been fortunate enough to have many mentors throughout my life. My family, they're huge. As far as my music, my grandmother, my aunt, my mom, my dad, my uncles. I think I've developed a pretty strong work ethic that I got from my dad and my grandfathers. Various teachers growing up with the educational aspect. Gail up at Penn State Wilkes-Barre, she got me through college.
Shout out to Gail.
Shout out to Gail.
Cheers to Gail.
As far as surveying goes, my professors, they taught me a lot. But I think my work experience has been the greatest learning ability for surveying by far. All of my bosses through the jobs, I kind of bounced around a lot because I was young, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Surveying, we'll get into that later, but it's a very broad subject. It covers a lot of ground, and I wanted to try and get a little bit of experience in each to figure out what I wanted to do.
Yeah, makes sense.
So each of my bosses at each of my jobs, they taught me what's good, what's bad, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, and why.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most important part. You can know something, but you don't really fully comprehend it until you know why.
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
Right.
Yeah, that's deep. That is. It really is.
That's always kind of been my favorite question.
Yeah.
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
I like that. It's a perfect segue. So why did you choose to pursue surveying as a career? I mean, I know as you're younger, like you said, you're reading the signs, you would learn that way. What really drew you in to surveying? Because I feel like it's not kind of like printing, like here at Colortech Creative Solutions. It's not an industry that is promoted. Everybody wants to be a designer.
It's very niche.
Yeah, it's very niche.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I fully stumbled on it. But I think a big part of it, like I said before, was the drafting and the map making part of it. As you know, for those that don't, Colortech Creative Solutions was able to print off a blueprint that I had of one of the buildings on the family farm back home.
Yeah, it turned out really well.
It did.
Yeah.
And it's hanging right above my monitors on the wall. So I always had a thing for maps. And seeing that surveying was a big part of map making and cartography in general, I think that's kind of what really led me down the road of surveying. And again, when I went in, I had no idea it covered as much as it does. So I'm glad I stumbled on it. I'm glad that I stuck with it, even when times were tough in college. You know, I didn't just take the easy way out. I stuck with it. I got a job, and it's been nothing but a learning experience ever since then.
To fast forward from Penn State Wilkes-Barre, you are now survey manager at Keystone Custom Homes down in Lancaster. What all does that entail?
So as the survey manager, my main duties are, from the management perspective, is making sure that the other members on our team have a workload that they can kind of manage the survey workload and scheduling. The cool thing about working at Keystone is, before I came, the amount of survey work that was going on was kind of minimal.
Okay.
You know, they were doing stakeout for houses, you know, laying out the foundations and stuff like that. But once I started, I was kind of able to take my knowledge and experience from past jobs, as well as with the support of my manager, and kind of run with it. You know, we were able to acquire the drones and get more accurate data quicker to provide to the rest of the members on our team, making maps that we can share with other members of our team that we weren't able to do before. So it's been an experience that I kind of have outside of the consulting world, that, you know, I only have basically one client, if you will.
Yeah.
And it's my employer.
Yeah, it's perfect.
So they say, hey, you know, can we do this with surveying? And I'll say, I'll take a look into it, see if we can do it. We can do it, great. If not, we try and find an alternative. So,
and you still get to spend a lot of your time outdoors. I mean, I know you have, from knowing you personally, I know you have a company truck, you know, so you're not stuck behind a desk, which is something that you didn't want to do.
But I still get to do the map making, which is a repeated.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's part of the job.
So, you know, I get the full experience. I get to go out in the field, I get to collect the data, and then I get to come back into the office, and I get to make a plan out of it and give it to whoever needs it.
Gotcha.
And with the advances in technology, you know, 10 years ago, drones were just starting to come out. You know, they certainly weren't being used for surveying. So the technology has advanced so much over the last 10 years that there's so much more data to really be able to use.
Yeah, and you can utilize drones to get to, you know, to get to places where people can't.
Right.
Know? Exactly.
I do want to backtrack a little bit here.
Sure.
And
hit me up. Let's
poke
go.
your brain here.
Oh, shit.
So,
all right, brother.
Before you met me, okay?
Before I met Shep, yes.
Yeah. Before you met Shep.
All right.
Did you know what surveying was?
Honestly, I didn't know what surveying was. My stepfather's an engineer, so I knew what that was. But no, I didn't know what surveying was. You see the people on the side of the road with their gizmos and gadgets doing their thing, but no, I didn't know.
Okay.
I didn't know.
So even now, what is surveying, now that you know Shep?
Well, man, this is going to be, okay, this is
Putting you on the spot.
My take on surveying. Surveying is, it's a mix of housing developments, roads. Surveying, I guess, is a part of everything, you know, that is important to the way you travel, the way you live. A surveyor, I would guess, would have to be a part of everything. Like I said, you want to build a home, there's a surveyor involved. You want to build a road, there's a surveyor involved. You want to build a bridge, there's definitely surveying involved. Without a surveyor, you can't build much, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good answer.
I'm sorry if I didn't hit it on the nail. But
no, I mean, for somebody outside of the surveying realm, you know, in the printing industry, that's a great answer for what surveying is.
If I didn't hit right on the head, like I said.
So the watered down version of what surveying is, We measure the earth
Damn.
horizontally and vertically, whether it's for a boundary survey, if you want to know where your property corners are, that's surveying. If they're building a warehouse, they need to know where the warehouse is going to be horizontally located. That's surveying.
That's surveying.
Yep. For the civil engineers to design the warehouse or design the community, design the road, whatever, they need a surveyor to go in and locate all of the information to build that design. So, I mean, surveyors are, with any sort of infrastructure project, first people on site, measuring.
I mean, you guys,
the earth.
You start the ball rolling. Really.
Yeah. A lot of times we're the first ones in, last ones out.
There you go.
Because a lot of the municipal requirements is verifying that it was built per plan.
Okay.
So how do you locate a building that was constructed and make sure it was built per plan?
You need a surveyor.
Call a surveyor.
I love it.
Call a surveyor. You got it.
That kind of answered my next question. Why is surveying important to society?
I gave you the watered down version of what surveying is,
Yeah,
but another duty of the surveyor is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. So by doing everything that I explained previously, we're doing that because you want to make sure that the building is built where it's supposed to. You want to make sure that, somebody isn't putting a shed that isn't on their property.
Right.
You want to make sure that when it rains, the water is going into the inlets and, not staying on the road so it doesn't cause an accident, and all of that
It's very important.
pertains to surveying. I mean, civil engineering is definitely a big part of it. They're making the designs to work, but without that initial data from the surveyor, it's like trying to put a puzzle together when you don't know what the end result is.
And that's frustrating for sure. What do you see? You're in surveying. It's your career. It's your livelihood. What do you see as the future for surveying and surveyors?
I will say the future of surveying is definitely bright. Since I've graduated college, I've noticed that there's more and more need for surveyors just because of like the technology with how it's developed and the things we're capable of doing and the data we're capable of acquiring. It's being used in more applications than ever before. But one of the major concerns that everybody in the industry has kind of been pushing to resolve is the lack of surveyors.
Well, it's got to be a big issue,
right? I don't know the exact statistic, but I know like the national average of age of a surveyor is well over 50.
Wow.
A licensed surveyor, yeah.
Getting close to retirement.
Yeah, so that they're all getting close to retirement. I know when the recession hit back in 2008, that kind of took a lot of guys out of the game. They either went on to a different path or just kind of retired early, what have you. But there's definitely a lack of surveyors. Jobs are posted and they're just sitting out for 6 months or more because they can't find anybody.
It's brutal.
Yeah. That's been a big push to try and develop the next generation of surveyors to kind of take the ones that are on their way to retirement.
Right, and that segues into Pennsylvania Young Surveyors Network, which you're a part of.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about that. What's your role, and how are you educating and I guess bringing up these future surveyors, right, to help better Pennsylvania?
The National Society of Professional Surveyors has I don't want to say student chapter, but a chapter of the National Society, which is the Young Surveyors Network.
Yeah.
And within that Young Surveyors Network, we have a structure of national officers, and then each state has the capability to have their own like state chapter of the Young Surveyors Network. So I'm the state coordinator for the Pennsylvania chapter of the Young Surveyors Network.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to
have
that.
A drink, Shep. Have a drink.
The big focus for the Young Surveyors is to build a mentorship program with those that are on their way to retirement. Make sure that we're getting all the information we can get to become better surveyors, make sure we're staying up to date with the latest technology, and just kind of have a group of like-minded individuals that you can relate to to just talk about the job.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Support each other.
Talk shop, and once the veterans kind of retire, you lose that knowledge.
Yeah.
So it's important to capture that.
And surveying, in some aspects, is definitely an art.
Yeah.
There's a lot, especially when it comes to property surveying and boundary surveys. When you get into the more rural areas, they're calling out rock piles. They're calling out deeds from the 1850s that are saying, the property corner is a cherry tree or a tree stump. Well, if it was a tree stump in the 1850s, I doubt it's anything there now. No. But there's definitely an art when it comes to recovering that evidence. It's almost like a treasure hunt. Yeah. Which I think is pretty cool.
It keeps it exciting for real, yeah.
Yeah, so you take these deeds, which is basically your map, and plot up the property as it's described, and they'll call out what the corners are supposed to be, and then it's, here's a blank slate of land, find one, and then try and find the others from that one. Jeez. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's definitely an art, and a lot of the guys that have been in the game for a long time, they've gathered that experience because there wasn't always surveying has been around as back Egyptian times, really.
Yeah.
Even probably before that. As long as there's been land, there's probably been surveyors. Since surveying's been around so long, a lot of the skills to it have been passed down from generation to generation.
Right.
So, now that we have the educational aspect, there's still that mentorship with the actual work experience and that the younger generation needs to get from those that are more experienced than them.
Exactly. Once that knowledge is lost, it's gone forever.
And it's going to take twice as long to replicate.
Exactly.
If at all.
If at all, exactly right.
Yep.
So for other young people, that are looking to get involved and start a career in surveying, what's the best avenue you'd recommend for them to take?
Talk to a surveyor.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Straight up?
Nobody's going to be able to explain surveying better to you than a surveyor, just like I did to you.
Yeah.
Learn
something new.
Yep. So, ask somebody off the street what's a surveyor, and they're like, they go door to door asking questions. And it's like, well, you're not wrong, but as far as a land surveyor, that's the guy that stands on the side of the road with the camera. It's not a camera. To really get as much information as you want about a surveyor, talk to a surveyor. Definitely guidance counselors, school counselors, Google. Can't go wrong with Google.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you want to really get the experience, just talk to a surveyor because they know the situation, they know the job, and they would be more than willing to, if they see somebody interested, they'd be more than willing to share the information about the job.
And to teach the next generation.
Absolutely.
To help them out.
Absolutely.
Perfect, yeah. Now to transition to the drone, which you brought, and that's just a little drone. I've seen your big one.
Yeah.
And I think your big ones that you fly is like this price of a car. For those that are listening.
Wouldn't fit on a table, that's for sure.
It would not fit on the table, no. Yeah, so can you explain the process of becoming drone certified, and how does that, benefit your career and what you're doing?
My license is, the proper name is Part 107 certification through the FAA.
Okay.
Part 107 is their rule book pertaining to unmanned drones, basically. There's a lot of course information online. At the end of the day, you need to take a test that the FAA gives out to get certified and then get recertified every 2 years. The avenue I took was I found a online course program that it was like a monthly subscription. You pay a couple bucks a month, and they have all these videos that walk you through everything you need to know to be a drone pilot. And it's kind of funny because everything that I had to go through, I had to learn how to read the flight maps, prepare flight plans, a lot of stuff that your commercial,
I was gonna say professional airplane pilots.
Yeah. A lot of what they need to go through, you need to know what they have to go through so you have an understanding, because you're going to be flying up in the air at the same time as them. So you need to have that understanding in order to be a safe, competent drone pilot. And then what was the second part of the question?
Yeah, so I said, what is the process to becoming drone certified?
Yep.
And then also for the listeners, because I know roughly, but can you give a rough estimate or price of these drones you're flying?
The price of the drones vary. I mean, this one is, I think, $15 or $15, $1,500.
$1,500.
You can get a professional quality small drone for, around $1,000, but depending on the drone itself as well as the payload,
Okay.
You could probably easily get into six figures because, I mean, think about it. How much does your camera equipment cost?
Well,
if you had top of the line,
brand new,
best of the best photo equipment,
you're probably looking at just for the camera body, $8,000 to $10,000 for brand new, and then you got a lens. That's another $5,000 or $6,000.
Yep, and then you got your filters and
and you got
batteries,
your flash, your battery. So
okay,
you could be looking close to an investment, probably $10,000 to $20,000, depending on how much equipment you're getting.
Okay, and then throw that on top of a drone. That can vary from, obviously, this little one isn't gonna hold a Nikon D80 or anything like that. But
right.
If you get a big camera, you can put that on the big drone, and I mean that's those get into anywhere from, I don't know, 10 to maybe 50,000.
Yeah,
I think there's guys that actually build their own drones too.
Really?
Yeah. Now they have to go through the FAA registration and everything.
That's wild.
But
it really is.
I haven't dove that deep into the drone world.
The brand you use is DJI.
Yeah, both of our drones are DJI. This is the one I have with me here is a Mavic 2 Pro. And we use that for site inspections, random photos. If we need to get a picture of a certain area of a site, we'll do a fly around, a 360 of the site to kind of give a visual representation of what it looks like.
Yeah, there will be photos on Facebook and Instagram, American Grown Podcast, because it is pretty neat. Like I've seen your big one, which obviously I don't even know if you could bring through the door here at the studio, but
it's basically in a luggage case. It got the handle and the wheels, and the battery case itself is like a oversized suitcase.
Yeah.
And that thing probably weighs like 40 pounds. Too.
It's huge.
Those batteries are heavy.
So when you're flying something of that magnitude and that cost, do you feel your nerve a little bit?
Oh, every time that thing goes up in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm nervous.
Because it's all on you. There's nobody else. I mean, it's just you and the drone.
With the kind of mapping that I do with the big drone, it's all automated. So, like, if it comes down to it, I can manually take over control of the drone, but for it to do what it needs to do, I make the flight plan. I tell it what elevation to fly at. I say what speed to fly at.
Yeah.
And then it just goes up and does it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So a drone benefits you by mapping out the whole area for like residential, like you're going to build some homes and stuff.
So I can fly an entire site with we have what's called a LiDAR unit on the bottom. So it's basically shoots a laser beam or a bunch of laser beams in a high density down at the ground. And then those lasers bounce back. It measures the amount of time in between to give you the elevation difference. And then there's a GPS built into the drone as well as one on the ground to give you your horizontal orientation. It's all automated. It covers a larger area in a shorter amount of time. So, we can fly 100 acres in an hour. For me to try and walk 100 acres,
it's going to take time,
and locate all of the variation in the grade and the topography, weeks.
So it cuts your time significantly.
Yeah.
And it benefits the surveyors. I don't want to say less work for you, but it's more efficient.
It's more efficient. I mean, there's definitely some caveats to it because, you got to know the limitations of your equipment.
Yeah.
So depending on what you're trying to do, if you're trying to get high grade accuracy stuff, nothing's going to be going out and like doing a field verification. If you're just looking for a rough estimate, depending on the site conditions and what equipment you have, it's not a end all be all for surveying. It's definitely a tool in the toolbox that you need to know the limitations of and use it accordingly.
While you're out there flying the drones, you go to some remote areas. What is it about the great outdoors that you really like?
Just being one with nature. Nothing beats nothing.
There you go, yeah.
You got the trees, you got the wildlife, and you got yourself. It's a great time for self-reflection. It's a great time to, relax.
Yeah, just you and your thoughts, really.
Yeah, which, can be a blessing and a curse depending on the situation, but nature definitely is one of the better places to just kind of unwind. I recently took a trip out to Benezet, Elk County, and it was nothing around. We stayed at a cabin in the woods. You had to go 2 miles back a dirt road.
Beautiful.
And it was just you and nature. And I have never been less stressed and felt closer to God, honestly. Yeah. Because it's so tranquil.
You probably have no phone service.
No phone service.
There's
The daylight wakes you up, because it's a cabin, so you're not going to have like the light blocking curtains or anything.
Yeah.
So middle of summer, early fall, sun rises, you get up, the whole earth kind of wakes up, and you go for a walk, see where it's at, and just absorb it all in, and it's so relaxing.
I agree 100%. Anytime you can get away from not only work, but just, I feel like society in general, and just you, your friends, your family, whatever it is, and just sit by a campfire, you can't beat it.
Yeah. And that's something that I've really learned to appreciate growing up where I did, because it's, you're a kid, you grow up, and the first thing you want to do is get out of the house, right?
Right. Exactly.
So I was like, I'm going to get out of the house. I got to, go somewhere. If I don't get out of the valley, I'm never going to leave, right? And looking back, it's like I didn't realize how good I had it.
Yeah.
The view I had from my bedroom window. I got the whole mountain.
Jeez.
And
beautiful.
Yeah.
But you don't realize it when you're young.
You didn't realize it.
Young and dumb.
Young and dumb, exactly.
That's it.
And, what I wouldn't give to go back and appreciate all that I had back then, for real.
For real, yeah. I'm with you. Maybe I'll edit this out. My wife, I always get this quote wrong from The Office. Something like, you wish you knew you're in the good old days before you left them. And maybe you know it better.
I don't. I've only seen The Office once.
Okay, but it's from The Office, and my wife, she'll correct me. But for the listeners that watch The Office, you know what I'm talking about. That's when Andy says that quote, and it's just like, you don't realize that you're living some of the best moments in your life. Like for me, yeah.
You don't know what you got till it's gone.
You don't, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. My grandfather and my grandmother on the Sullivan side of the family, they'd always make this chicken barbecue. God, it's some of the best chicken barbecue. And now that my grandfather's older, my grandma had a stroke, it's like, it just, you miss that stuff. You really do. But anyway, it's not about me. It's about you, Shep.
A quote that kind of stands out from what you said. Don't sweat the petty stuff, and don't pet the sweaty stuff.
I like that. That's a good one. That is a real good one. Yeah, for real. So, enjoy those moments, whether you're, younger or older. Enjoy the time you have with the people you have it with. Now, you have quite a few hobbies, including playing the piano, which we hinted at earlier.
Yeah.
Building with Lego, which I'm a big fan of. But then you also work part-time at the AACA, which for all of the listeners is the Antique Automobile Club of America.
Museum.
Yep. So tell us a little bit about each of those things.
Well, we'll work backwards.
Okay.
So the AACA Museum, I've been working there for about 5 years now. It was our wedding venue.
Nice.
Yeah, that's kind of what got me there.
Yeah.
I've always had an appreciation for old cars. I had a 1953 Dodge pickup that my great-grandmother owned.
Oh, wow.
And I did a full frame-off restoration on it. Wow. Took it completely, tore it down, nuts, bolts, bare frame, cleaned everything up.
How long did that take you?
Nights and weekends for 3 years.
Did you do it by yourself?
I had help.
Yeah.
There's a body shop that was able to kind of store it for me, and they did the paint for me, helped me out. Dylan, he helped me out quite a bit with some of the small parts. With like putting things together, an extra set of hands. My dad came down. He helped me do some troubleshooting with the brake lines because, had to bend them all by hand.
Oh, Jesus.
It was fun. But yeah, so I mean that was quite an experience, and I'm glad that I was able to find the museum. I mean, God bless Hannah. When we were looking for a wedding venue, we were trying to do the barns because that was a big thing back then.
Oh yeah, that's
and
the thing. Yeah.
The pricing that they wanted were crazy. Like there was a place that's like, we're gonna charge you a couple $1,000 for a barn, and that's it. You got to bring your own toilet paper. You got to bring your own tablecloths, chairs,
right, yeah.
everything. Right. So
right.
And she, was shopping for wedding, or, shopping around for wedding venues. And she was like, "What do you think about getting married in a classic car museum?" And I'm like,
"Speaking my language."
Yeah. Why would you even ask me that? Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Like that question alone was enough to marry you right there.
Yeah.
Like just call it.
Yeah. Let's make it happen.
So so we went down, we did a tour, absolutely fell in love with it, and our event coordinator was like, "Hey, if you're interested and you're in the area, we're looking for help for event staff." And I'm like, "Oh, what's event staff?" And they're like, "So we, have these weddings and everything else. Whenever we have these events, we have to move the cars." And I'm like, "You mean you're willing to pay me to move antique cars?"
They trust you to move antique cars.
There was definitely extensive training.
Okay, I believe it.
Yeah. I wasn't jumping in the Firebird the first day.
Yeah.
It was like you sit and watch, make sure I don't hit anything, and it's been history ever since then.
Wow,
it's fun to do. It's great to see all the different cars that come in and out because they have rotating exhibits. As far as the piano goes, my capabilities very well.
Oh, I know them very well. So for the listeners, and maybe I'll put the video on Facebook and Instagram. I feel like I should.
I feel like you shouldn't.
I feel like I have to.
So Sully's 30th birthday party.
30th birthday party. All right.
Had it local here at one of the fire companies. Had a DJ, and Piano Man comes on. So Piano Man is greatest song ever.
Oh yeah,
right.
Can't beat it.
And since I've been playing piano for a majority of my life, when I found Piano Man, I'm like, I need to learn how to play that. So, all through high school, I'm trying to find whatever music I can to learn Piano Man.
Mm-hmm.
So, there was a few drinks that happened.
There was more than a few, but yes.
And Piano Man came on, and I'm like, hey, there's a piano up there. I should go play it. And, Sully being the big supportive friend that you were, you're like, you should go do it,
Nothing but love, brother. Nothing but love.
No peer pressure at all.
Yeah.
So I went up to the piano and talked, kind of waddled around the DJ. I said, "Oh, I'm going to play this. I'm going to play this." And they're like, "Yeah, right. This is just another, drunk guy that's going to make a fool of himself." And I think I did half decent.
You crushed it, dude.
And
I'm posting the video.
I think my favorite part
Let the listeners decide.
Is you had no idea. That was the first time you knew that I played piano.
Yeah, I had no clue you could play the piano. So, it's my 30th birthday party, family, friends, pretty good sized group at this fire hall. And yeah,
your jaw dropped.
It did. It really did. I was shocked because it was awesome. It was so cool. I'm like,
but
yeah, I
will say that's the only time that I've ever played piano and sang at the same time.
Yeah.
I don't sing. Puberty did me dirty. I used to have a decent singing voice, and then the voice started cracking, dropped down an octave or so, and it's just been...
That was it.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that was a special moment for my 30th birthday party. That was awesome because I did not see it coming, and some people are like, "Oh, Shep's trying to steal the show, or what's he doing?" And I'm like, no. That's what I want. Like, that's something special. That's a moment, that it'll never happen again. You know what I mean? And it was really cool. So, no, I'm glad that you got the courage to go up there. Maybe with some liquid courage.
Yeah, there was definitely liquid courage involved, especially for singing.
Yeah, but no, I appreciate that very much. And then, that kind of segues into our love of Lego. And you have an actual grand piano, I think it is?
Yeah, so Lego came out with a grand piano, and I think it's geared more towards adults for sure, because they know that the Lego marketing team does a fantastic job. They know that it's something that both kids and adults can enjoy together. They have the sets for the kids, and then they make some more extensive sets for the adults, right?
Yeah.
I got the piano after coming back from a trip to Disney because I didn't want to try and fly back with a...
No, that sounds like a headache.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Extra fee. So we got back from the airport, went to the Lego store. I bought that. That was my vacation splurge, right?
Yeah.
And I think it was like 3,500 pieces. It was broken up into, I think, 28 different bags. And it took me almost 2 weeks to build. But the really cool part is they have a Bluetooth thing that kind of ties into it, that you get an app on your phone, and it's basically a player piano. So you pick a song and say play, and it syncs to the Bluetooth, and then the keys move up and down, and then there's a speaker inside that plays the tune, and it's really cool.
It is really cool. When I saw it the first time, I'm like, you almost couldn't believe it was made out of Lego.
Right. Tools for grown adults.
Exactly.
Toys for grown adults.
Toys or tools. I mean, if you're getting into surveying, I guess, Legos could be, beneficial, really.
I decorate my office with I have a claw machine that you would find like an excavator or like at a junkyard, like the things you see pull the motors out of the car.
Right.
I have a Lego version of that I have sitting up in my office.
There you go.
It has a battery pack to it that you can move some arms, and the arm goes up and down, and the claw opens and closes. And next on my list is a remote control bulldozer.
No way.
Yeah.
Made out of Lego?
Yeah, it's all Lego.
Wow.
It's in the Technic brand, but it's
okay.
it's pretty salty. So I need to get my priorities in straight before I go and
I see you brought a Lego piece with you, so we'll talk about that in a little bit, because I got one more question. So this next question I kind of asked to every guest in one way or another. But what would you say motivates you day in and day out to be the best version of yourself?
From a surveying perspective, because let's be honest, that's the majority of what I do. You always need to be the best surveyor you can be. And in order to do that, you need to be a sponge.
Yeah.
You got to learn as much as you can about as much as you can. And all in all, I mean, it helps you be a better surveyor, but it definitely helps you be a better person as well. It's not all just numbers and math and dirt and, everything else. It's, relations with people, with your clients, management, how to talk to people and not be micromanaging or, barking orders left and right. I always try to be the person that I would have wanted as a coworker or a boss when I was going through the ranks, if you will. Because, I've had great bosses. I've had, I don't want to say terrible bosses, but our personalities clashed.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So
sure.
I always try to, keep a level head and try and look at it from all perspectives.
Yeah.
Because everybody's going to have their opinion, and it's definitely going to differ from yours.
Mm-hmm.
But the reasons why they may think that, once you understand that, you'll have more of a respect for it. It's kind of like the golden rule, but it's not quite.
I see what you're saying. You want to have that respect from the people that are following behind you, these younger people. But at the same time, you want to educate them, teach them as much as you can, and just be professional.
And, they say there's three sides to every story: yours, theirs, and the truth.
There you go, yeah.
If you can get take out the truth, I mean, even just the two sides, if you know and understand yours, obviously, but if you also are willing to know and understand theirs, again, it all comes down to the why. Why I understand you think different than me, why? And once you understand that why, it gives you a new perspective that you can both reflect on and potentially use down the line.
Well, to have that conversation and then to grow and learn from it. Like you said, it benefits both parties.
You got to be a sponge, man.
Yeah.
That's the only way you're going to get through life.
There you go.
Be a sponge.
Exactly. So now you brought with you 3 items.
Yep.
For the listeners, what are they? Photos will be online, but let's start with the Lego piece.
So this is it's a Lego Surveyor.
I could tell. You got nerdy on me.
Yeah,
and I love it.
I got real nerdy. So this was actually a promotional item from the equipment manufacturer that they had, and when we bought some equipment, I was like, oh, hey, they threw this in.
Okay.
And I thought it was the coolest thing because, I'm a Lego geek. So
Yeah.
all of these are basically my office decorations with the exception of the drone. But yeah, I got my Lego Surveyor. He's right next to the Lego excavator I was talking to you about. I have a die-cast model of a 1948 Dodge pickup. So mine's a 53, but this is the basis of what it looks like to remember my grandmother, who's since passed, as well as all of the blood, sweat, and tears that went into restoring it. Because that was a good reminder that you can do anything you put your mind to. I'm not a mechanic by any means, but I wanted to restore this since I was 15.
Wow.
And I finally got enough courage and gumption and a little bit of money
to
actually be able to do it.
To give it a go, yeah.
I'd put this right next to the window just to remind myself that, you can do anything as long as you put your mind to it. And then the other thing I brought with was the Mavic 2 Pro, which we talked about earlier.
Yeah. With your items and you being honestly you're probably the top fan. It's you, it's my mom, it's Courtney, and it's probably some other good friends. A guy named Fred Long, who his episode will be coming out before this one, and I appreciate that. But with it being the 1-year anniversary, what would you say is your favorite episode of the American Grown Podcast?
I think that every single episode of the American Grown Podcast has been absolutely fantastic. I think that there are definitely things that you can pull from every single guest that's been on, their story, and you can use their story in your own story. But if I had to pick a top one, I'm going to pick 2.
Ooh, okay, you're going to pick 2, all right.
So the first one is episode 1, Coach Bear.
Coach Bear.
Dude is an absolute inspiration, motivational speaker, overall great guy. I could tell that just from listening to it.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to that one, it was like, okay, episode 1, Sully's got a podcast. It's probably going to be a little rough around the edges, and both of you just absolutely killed it. And he made it so easy to talk to him. I don't know the guy, and just listening to it, you could tell what kind of person he is. And my second favorite is the one where you were sitting on this side of the table.
Oh, with my wife, Courtney, interviewing me.
Yeah. Yeah. I was completely blindsided by that when she did the introduction. I'm like, you know what? I think this is going to be good. And, getting to be able to hear your story and why you do what you do and why you do this. I mean, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
You got a great thing going here.
Oh, thanks, Shep. I appreciate that.
With that, I want to ask you a few questions.
All right, turn the tables. Let's go. If anybody's still listening, this should be interesting because the bourbon's half gone. So please fire away.
So you've been doing this a year now, right?
Yeah.
What has been the hardest part?
The hardest part, I would say, and this isn't like a glamorous answer, but it is editing of the podcast and creating content that I feel is worthy for people to listen to. There's so much out on social media. It's like, why should people give their time to the American Grown Podcast? And I feel like it's because it's local business owners, nonprofits, veterans, people like yourself. Everybody has a story, So I try to capture that in the best light, the best way I can. I try to produce social media content that people will listen to, but a lot of it is the behind the scenes that people don't see or don't hear, and that can be the hardest part for sure.
Okay. And the other question I wanted to ask, which kind of goes off of this, but the second question I wanted to ask was basically the opposite. So since you've been doing this for a year, what's been the high point of the American Grown Podcast so far?
The high point, yeah, for sure, is meeting new people, right? All throughout Pennsylvania. I mean, I've had people come from Allentown, Mechanicsburg, here in Lebanon County, and it's hearing their stories. I've had people come from Lancaster and meeting people that I don't even know. in this case, we're good friends. Hell, I'd say we're best friends. So we have some background, we know each other, but it's learning from these people that I don't know and getting their experience. And if people are still listening, thank you. I really appreciate it. And, it's been an hour.
Woof.
Yeah, woof, right, exactly. But, my plan is going forward is to release a new episode once a week.
That was going to be my next question. What's the next year of the American Grown podcast going to look like?
So the next year is my goal with my wife, Courtney. She's going to help me out and be my PR person, is to release an episode once a week. So what that means is it's going to be a lot more interviews and a lot more just on the back end, creating social media content, getting Courtney involved. She'll reach out to people, and she knows my schedule better than I do, if I'm being honest. And Shep, you know how this goes. So, just getting people on the show, because I have an abundance. I have 70, close to 80 people that have filled out the form. There's a form to be on the podcast.
Yep.
It's just so I can better know people and what they want to talk about. So I have an abundance of people that want to be on the podcast, want to speak their truth, want to tell their story. Yeah, I'm excited to do that. It's going to be a big commitment, but I think it's kind of the next step. This once a week for a year, it's been a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. It allows me some flex time to not be, hey, I got to produce an episode. But I think in order for the podcast to grow, I think it's time to do a new episode of the American Grown podcast every Wednesday morning.
On Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
You know it better than I do. Yeah, Google Podcasts. Don't forget Google. For those Android users, we are on Google Podcasts.
Yeah, I'm on the Apple wagon, but...
So, no, I mean, it's been a lot of fun. Like I said, meeting new people. I have a full-time job selling print here at Colortech, along with doing photography for Blue Cardinal Photography here in Lebanon County. A lot of people know that because we cover all the high schools, Lebanon Valley College as well. And, maybe sometimes I bite off more than I can chew, but I feel like this is a need. I know a lot of people personally, professionally, friends, family, and then just people throughout the community that I want to shout out. And when I say community, I mean, it goes throughout Pennsylvania. If you're in Mechanicsburg, if you're in Allentown, if you're up in State College and you want to make the trip here to Lebanon County, we'll drink a bourbon, we'll have a drink, and we'll, tell your story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions?
No, that was it. That sums it up. You did a great job.
Did I do well?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, we're going to wrap this up.
Yeah.
I got a couple more questions for you. How can our listeners connect with you and follow along on your journey?
Best way to get a hold of me is probably on LinkedIn, Taylor Shepley, PLS. Facebook and Instagram, I have it, but I don't really use it for anything outside of like dog videos. So
yeah, for Bella.
Yeah,
shout out to Bella.
Shout out to Bella. She's the four-legged child that everyone wants to have, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, LinkedIn's the best way to get a hold of me. If you want to follow the Surveyor side, or you want to, you have questions about surveying, you want to follow the Young Surveyors Network, just Google NSPS Young Surveyors Network. There's the state chapter has a PSLS Young Surveyors Network on LinkedIn as well.
Perfect. So before we close out, is there anything else you'd like the listeners to know?
I think I've said enough.
I think we both have, and the bourbon has for me. To close out, Taylor Shepley on the American Grown podcast in the Colortech Creative Solutions studios. Thank you for joining me.
It's been a pleasure.
Awesome, brother. Cheers to that.
Cheers.
To see photos of today's guests and more content, just search American Grown Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave a review.
If you'd like to be a featured guest on the podcast, please direct message or email Austin at americangrownpod@gmail.com.